What's good, y'all? As you could tell by the title and thumbnail, we've got the Defender tier list for Alliance battles now. With me, I got GetLite, certified Defender main here.
Sure. How are you? Hey guys,
I'm fine, man. I'm fine. How about you?
doing great, man. I gotta say, I love to be a designated defender main. It wasn't my choice, but the role just kind of chose me, right? So yeah, I do know a thing or two about defenders, so I figured I'd give a little bit of that insight today.
Yeah, that's great, man. The way we're doing is we've got four tiers: the broken, the meta, and the playable, and the straight S tier. The broken tier is basically the defenders you would want to bring. They can be replaced by the meta though. Playable defenders are good defenders, but they kinda suffer in this meta. And straight S is relevant, but you really don't want to bring them. And I think we
Right.
can start off with Treo. I mean, he has been a real staple in the alliance battles ever since he came out.
Yes, he has. Yep.
I think it's quite obvious where he can go.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
think he
Definitely
still
top five.
belongs in the broken tier, yeah. He's still really good. I mean, defenders are kind of weak at the moment, but Dribble, I think he's still got it. I mean, he didn't change much. He just still
No, I
depends
I
on,
agree, man.
yeah,
I agree.
he still depends on luck. So if you're lucky, you can really cook with Dribble, and his pull's really useful. What do you think?
So what I love about his type of defender here is that it's very rare to see it in that pool defenders. Is that he can be very mobile at times. He has really good range in that pull and that skill two. Really good skill two, of course. Cooldown. Obviously, the 60%. I like to call it the biased coin flip, if you will. With this character, he doesn't really need a treasure area. Only if you want that additional damage reduction, the knockback, as well as skill cooldown. But basically what I'm trying to say is he can help in team engagements here. He can also rotate to the treasure areas really efficiently, especially with that pull. Um, so yeah, I think this character has been really, really good. Definitely top three best defender in league, or not league, excuse me, AVAs. But yeah, I absolutely think this character has been a monster ever since.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we can continue with Betty maybe. I know you've
Yes.
been playing her in the Clash of Legends as
Oh, a
well.
lot.
And
Mm-hmm.
oh, she is an interesting character to say the least because she is basically just buffing her teammates and charging up the
Yep.
flags, but
Mm-hmm.
that buff can really have a huge input on
It's
the
a team
match.
boost. Let's call it a team
Yeah,
boost.
it's
She gives you
basically a
a
team
buff
boost to
equivalent
the
to a team
teammates,
boost.
yeah. I mean, I think she's kind of up there with Treble, but what do you think?
Yeah. I think so. Personally, I guess I'm slightly biased only because of the way I played her. She's really good all around, but in AVAs, I'd have to put her as probably the best defender in the game. If played correctly here, it mostly comes from that skill two that she can loop. It's so dangerous knowing that there's no real counters out for her yet, only for characters that can either remove cooldowns, such as Cracker's Biscuit Warrior. There's not a lot of characters that can also nullify her 1 HP left trait.
Yeah, only
You're not going to
Shiryu
see a lot of
basically,
Shiryu,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Shiryu and King Punch if you're feeling,
Okay,
really, really
okay.
special,
Yeah.
You want to gamble really quick? Yeah, of course. But yeah, for this character, she does great for the team boost gauge. If you're aware, she gives an additional 3% to the team boost gauge per cap, which is super nice. She also gains back her HP via skill 2 and per kills as well. This character does so much. She's the best support in the game. True support character. Like, since 2-year chopper, we're not going to talk about the film road one either. But yeah, I honestly love this character to death. I think she's amazing. I love that the speed boost that she gives, the 200% attack, the crit, the 50% attack, and of course the super armor for all as well. Now, if you're a Bella player, I've noticed this a lot as well, that the 15 seconds isn't a real 15 seconds on that skill one. It does get buggy at sometimes. You're not going to nullify status for the true 15 seconds. But that's the importance of mashing it because of her cooldowns are crazy, especially if you have a good skill 2 cooldown on her as well. So yeah, she can definitely just carry and just ignore refill gauge. She does so much, man. She checks so much boxes. And yeah, for me, that's just number one defender in the game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially that team boost buff. if you put that on your team at the beginning, they are one-shotting
Oh
everyone
yeah,
at mid.
man.
It's
Cracker,
absolutely
Alber.
outrageous,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really ridiculous how strong this boost can be, especially at the beginning of the match. You're really
Yeah. It's
struggling at the beginning if you're going up against a Bello
yep.
Betty without a Bello Betty on your own team. So
Game changing for sure.
she is game changing. Yeah, she can really change the outcome of a match. Yeah, I think next up we got Neptune. I mean, he's really under the radar. He's not actually that bad, I think. Like he has like the water bubble he can put up, which basically
Mm-hmm.
makes him and his teammates invincible, if I'm not mistaken. He is green though, and the meta is very red, and he is not the most tanky. I was first edging to, in my opinion, put him at playable, but I think he's kinda in the straight S tier.
So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I was one of those. Oh man, I gotta tell you, every time I pull for characters, they just love giving me the other one. And when he dropped, I wanted Hody, and the game just kept giving me Neptune copies. So I was one of those rare, Max Neptunes when he dropped. And from playable, so what his skill 2 does, you're talking about the shield, right?
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't make them invincible. What it does is it applies heals. It
Ah,
covers the
okay.
entire treasure area. The longer he holds it, the more he heals. It makes them nullify status.
Does he also nullify
That's what skill
knockback
2
while
does.
doing that?
Not really. I think if you try to knock him back, he might get knocked down in treasure
Mm-hmm.
area. But if you do have knockback, it will send him. Unfortunately, um, obviously, I know this character from front to back as well. He's really good against characters with shield, but exclusively to Uta and AVAs because that's the only consistent shield character that you'll
Mm-hmm.
see. But Uta is not going to really target him. His main thing is that he has to worry about status characters as well as characters that ignore damage reduction, etc., etc. He's really good against power users, especially with that skill 1. Does like what base 600 around there with a huge increased damage to power users. So he can definitely do a lot. I remember I used to chunk Cracker back in the day when he used to be playable, ulti as well. A lot of those blue power users, and he has really good damage reduction. However, I only think he slacks in because of his cooldowns, of his usefulness. He is a treasure area defender here. He's not too mobile at times.
Yeah, it's
He only
true.
has the skill 1, and if you don't have the skill 2, you can easily pick him apart.
Yeah,
So you have to play this character very, very technical. Otherwise, it will punish you in the end. But
yeah.
I would say he's all right.
So you would put him at playable? Or?
I mean, I would put him at playable
Yeah.
personally.
Let's put him there for
I don't
now.
think he's
We can
meta.
maybe
Yeah, I
change
think
it
he's
later. Yeah.
playable. If you want to be cheeky, you can play him,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, right, the mobility is kind of a big part for defenders. Like
Yeah.
Trebo and
Mm-hmm.
Bello Betty are so good because they can live outside their treasure
Yeah.
area and still have the
This is what I'm
same
talking to you, man.
output,
This is what I was
basically. Yeah.
saying. It's one of those rare cases where defenders such as Bello and Trouble and another defender I can also name, but we'll get to her in a minute, that they don't require a treasure area. Like Bello's kit, nothing in her traits say anything that she gets from a treasure area. All she can do is just ignore people and charge it. But everything else in her kit does not require a treasure area, which makes her extremely mobile. You can fight with her on and off treasure areas here, as well as Trouble. You can definitely walk outside that treasure area and not feel scared or feel that you're going to get easily picked off like most defenders in this game. Neptune is also one of those characters that if he does walk off the shield, or excuse me, walk off the treasure area, that he's going to feel vulnerable at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is why I'm kind of like skeptic about Neptune, but I would definitely say playable for sure.
Yeah, I think we're gonna continue with Brooke. I kind of
Brooke.
see him at the same level as Neptune, honestly. I mean, he has the same thing. He can't play outside his treasure area. He does have the frozen, the freeze status effect, which is great for stopping runs and stuff, and he has a counter, which is great.
Yep.
But the thing for him is he gets cooked by Cracker first of all. I mean, which applies to a lot of defenders, to be honest,
Yeah.
because he ignores damage reduction. But he is very slow and he can't play outside the treasure area.
Yep.
And I think he is kind of at the same level as Neptune here, honestly.
So Brooke, what's interesting about this character? I remember when he first dropped. His kit, honestly, for what it's worth, is really
it's
strong.
actually really
He has
strong.
a really good healing mechanic. He has a really good healing
Can I
mechanic.
mention something? What I really like
Go ahead,
about Brooke
yeah.
is what they did there. They gave him defense buffs, but also damage reduction. Like in the past, you had either a defender stack defense or they had damage reduction, but he has both, which is kind of cool, yeah.
Especially key, you forgot to mention the attack debuff. Now, personally, I think Attack debuff might be the strongest debuff in the game. I mean, all debuffs are strong.
Underrated. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
underrated.
super
Yeah.
strong. And I'm pretty sure with Brooke here, it doesn't say anything in the traits. If he lands both those skills, he can stack attack debuffs, which allows other characters to do literally single double-digit damage to him on top of his little 30% damage reduction that he gets within the treasure area. And if you also get him a 70% defense, which could be easy if you're able to chain that frozen, you can get that 70% defense, which allows him to combat somewhat against those characters that ignore damage reduction, because what counters that is defense, of course. And if he also lands that attack debuff, it makes it so that he's survivable. But this is also one of those cases where, his nullify status, the additional, damage reduction, and the knockback, all comes from the treasure area, specifically the treasure
Doesn't he?
gauge.
Yeah, treasure gauge 80% or
Yep,
something, right? Yeah.
80%. Exactly. So he's super, super vulnerable outside the treasure area here. I love his counter. His counter's good. It has really good range. But the only reason why I am kind of on the fence about it is because it's a charge counter, which means if it does land, it takes him outside of the treasure area, which means you're going to be super vulnerable when you're off that. So you have to be very, very careful when you land that counter. Make sure it's a 1v1 situation, because if you are getting 2v1, 3v1, especially against those runners, all you have to do is watch out for the counter, have one of them activate it for you, bait it out so you can start capturing the flag. And as soon as that gauge is below 80, it's looking kind of rough for old Brooke here. But I remember when he used to be one of the best defenders in AVA, but unfortunately the fall off did happen to this character. So I'd say playable for the most part. You'll definitely run into a Brooke every now and then, but not as much as you did before.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I think we could continue with, in my opinion, the most underrated defender in the game.
I agree, man. I agree.
Chin Zhao is a legit force, bro. He is a legit force, actually.
Yeah, I love his kit. Unfortunately, the game gave me Hakuba instead of Chinjao here, so I had to walk away to Max Hakuba instead, which, of course, people can debate is a better character, but I've been a fan of Chinjao since he dropped. I honestly love his kit. It's extremely unorthodox. You're not going to see his kit every day.
Yeah.
He has nullify status. He has ignored defense. He does have access to the status, which is kind of wacky because you have to be really in front of him.
Yeah, the
but obviously
on his other skill, which actually hits hard as fuck. His skill hits
it
hard,
does. It really does. But you have to be super close to them for them to get the both attacks on it, the tremor and into the landing. But we can definitely say his skill 2 is obviously the best here. It's the circular attack, if you will. I forgot the name of it. I should probably pull up these names so I actually sound like a pro. Oh God, so I actually know what I'm talking about here. Yeah, what I love about Trouble. Yeah. Oh God, it's been so long since I've played with Chinjao, played against the Chinjao. So yeah, the head arm spin, I like it a lot. It's a hold skill in the treasure area, which can be very, very vital. It has knockback on every hit. It also has speed reduced on 30% for 20 seconds, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's very, very key. He does have a kit that counters multi-hit of characters. Exactly.
Yep.
So
against
when you run into those characters, Biscuit Warrior. But in terms of what we see a lot, he's really good against those multi-hits, such as the Biscuit Warrior, Hakuba skill 1. Trying to think what other characters have multi-hits. Usually, if you think about it, there's not a lot of characters that inflict multi-hits in a lot in AVAs anymore. It's pretty much just a 3-hit, do a lot of damage combo, and the most hits come from skills nowadays. But, during that time, definitely a strong matchup as well. He has the fixed damage if he gets attacked a lot. But like I said, at most you run into a few characters that has like 3 to 4 hits on their normals, but most of those hits come from their skills. His skill 2 basically sells him here. I think without his skill 2, he would be kind of washed because he gets the reduced knockback, reduced being down, resist stagger, and he gets an additional 50% damage reduction while in skill 2. He does nullify status and 30% DR when in the treasure area as well. And he does gain HP. His healing mechanic is very, very limited because he only gets it from knockback and when he's getting hit. So yeah, and I think knockback in this case is probably his worst nightmare because you would need to stay in the treasure area. So it's kind of a give and take with that healing mechanic. It's not the best in these scenarios, but definitely decent, right? We love HP on knockback because it's proved to be such a strong one, especially if you were able to live. But yeah, I think with this character, his kit is very, very unique. You're not going to see a lot of these characters with his kits. But the same thing, like most of these other defenders, he requires a treasure area,
Yeah.
not specifically a treasure gauge. He requires a treasure area, which means he's not too mobile. I wouldn't expect anyone to try to snipe with that skill 1 here. You try to have to play very, very limited as possible. Not as much team engagements, very passive, and hold down those 1v1s should they make that push for you. So yeah, that's my synopsis with
Yeah.
this character.
Kind of a similar situation to Neptune again, right? He's just standing on
Exactly.
his treasure.
Yeah.
I think he's on their level. We can put him in the same tier as Neptune and
Yeah,
Brooke.
yeah. I think it'd be cute to see a Chinja be played again. I always get excited when I see him being
Mm,
played. So yeah, I'd have to say Chinja.
yeah. Let's continue with Jimbe. Not gonna lie, in my opinion, he goes into the straight S tier. I mean,
Uh,
you
I
can
mean,
use him, but
you
he
could,
needs
but
the
it's
80%
super rare,
treasure. Yeah, you
rarer than
need the
Chinjo.
80%
Yeah.
treasure. He cannot do anything against runners because he doesn't have status effects. I mean, he does do quite a lot of damage to power users with that charge counter skill thing, but
Mm.
it is, and he can be taken out by attackers like Cracker. So I really don't think there's much space for Jimbe in the meta right now. You
Yeah.
can potentially bring him, but it's kind of, he's not really gonna kill anyone, and he might as well die to Cracker or something and not be able to guard the back as well.
Yeah, for this character, again, definitely a problem is that he is restricted to the treasure area, especially the treasure gauge. He's an 80% gauge guy where he gets the nullify status and resist knockback. So it sounds strong at first. You think, well, defender has nullify status and knockback. That's already such a win-win. But like I said, the problem with this character, as you mentioned before, as we've been saying this entire time, is that he is super limited to that treasure area, only good against power users. He does get a defense buff and some cooldowns against power users here if they make that push against him. Um, but the reason why it's as weak as it is because he doesn't really do any damage, right? You said it before. Skill 1, you're rarely going to be landing those in engagements. It doesn't have the best of range. Mostly going to be using it in those 1v1 scenarios as well as that counter here. Yeah, I don't know, man. I wanted this character to work so much. He has a really good normal attack. He has great multi-hits. Obviously, it's good against, your favorite EX kind of, but we're talking about AVAs here. So for me, it really is tragic when I speak about this character. I've always been a fan of his design. I love what he can do.
Yeah,
I remember
I
when he first
think
dropped,
I,
I
I
thought he
really
was so
like him
cool.
too. I sometimes play
Yeah,
in
he was so
challenge
cool, man.
battles.
He was
He's
so
fun.
cool.
He's really fun, yeah. But
Yeah, but like that's the thing, man. He's super vulnerable when
yeah,
switching between treasure areas, right? Especially when you need help on those rotations there, which means you can definitely pick him off. Like I said, he loses so much off that treasure area, such as the nullify status, knockback, whatever have you, as well as his damage reduction. So he just loses so much off that treasure area. So in crucial moments where he needs to rotate, it could be very, very punishable. So that's why he might be in straight booty, but I wouldn't be against it if he wasn't playable either. But I agree with this nonetheless.
Alright. Let's continue with a character you mentioned previously, I think, which is the Blue Uta now.
Ooh, Uta.
Yeah, she is
So this
pretty good.
character,
Yeah.
yeah. So I maxed Blue Uta literally the night she dropped. I remember when it started a huge controversy, for that time, saying that her kit was just too powerful. Now, in terms of a defender, man, her kits, I like to call this just pure synergy at its finest. Her
Mm-hmm.
kits just simply French kiss each other. Let me tell you. She does so much with the top musica that gives her a natural 30% damage reduction plus nullify status. Her skill 2 has crazy range. Oh my god, it really
Yeah,
has
the
the beam
range
on it.
surprises me every time it hits me, honestly.
Oh, I remember, dude. I abused that skill 2. I used to snipe people free with that skill 2. Those were the days, man. I loved playing Blue Uta. Um, and she also gets the 30% when in her treasure area, plus the cooldown. And then she has the counter and a hold skill that gives her another 70% DR. And then you give her heals plus a defense buff. When you try to status her, she also gets heals when using her normals and a 50% damage increase against Sing Sing enemies, which is a lot stronger than
Mm,
Utas, the red Utas, that is. For me, I would personally say she is definitely top 5 to play in AVA. because she is one of those rare characters that don't require a treasure area.
Exactly,
She
yeah.
doesn't. She really doesn't. Her range is incredible. She's a status character through and through. She deals with so many matchups on the fly. She counters so many units. I think the problem with her was she ran AVA for about a month, and then
Yeah.
people
For a
of
short
course would
time,
try to
and
use
then people were
exactly.
countering her, yeah.
Yeah, it would just be Cracker, and if you played well, Hody could
Yeah,
also do some
Hody is
damage.
dangerous for Uta as well.
So you pretty much have to play super cautiously there because against Hody, you can use both of your skills to combat that skill too, but it would try to be a stall fest because you don't really have much skill potential against this buff state either. Cracker, same thing. The only thing you'd have is the counter and try to out heal so that you'll be able to live that skill one, and then hopefully that you'll be at full health by the time you get that skill one back again. So yeah, I think for this defender here, definitely top 5 defenders in AVA League, especially know how to play her. I personally love this character to death. She has one of the strongest defender kits in the game that I've ever
Yeah,
seen
she
before.
does.
But yeah, people got kind of scared when Sanji dropped, and
Yeah, oh, I
lo and
forgot about
behold, yeah,
him.
dude, people. I
He
remember when
hit
Sanji
hard.
dropped, literally 30 days after Sanji dropped, and then immediately people called her extinct. But I honestly I see them both being respectively played, and even more so, Sanji got countered even harder compared to Blue Uta with the Kreen and Albert drop. Because then we learned that Sanji is such a glass cannon. He has no damage reduction, no last stand, no revive, and you have to work for that defense buff. So he can get one shotted to 2 tapped as soon as he responds. So kind of sucks that people kind of got afraid when Sanji dropped and immediately thought, well, Uta's just finished. Because you don't really see Sanji being played that much. You see Sanji maybe sometimes, but I think currently the red element is dominating AVA leagues right now.
Yeah, there's definitely is,
So
yeah.
yeah, personally, you can still play this character, especially if they don't have a Sanji here. Now, of course, their matchups are different now, especially against Albert. People saying Albert can do some damage, especially with that skill 1. I could see that, but
Yeah,
she
he
does have
was.
multi hits. She does have status, and that can take care of Albert just as well. I honestly think her bad matchups reside in Cracker the most,
Yeah, and
because of his ignore
Hody, I
damage
think so
reduction.
too.
Yeah, Hody for sure. Like I would say, you could definitely fight Hody more than you could fight Cracker here. And then some people might even bring in Greenball because he does have the skill 1 and skill 2. But
Well,
I
you
think it's
have
kind
the
of
Sing
even.
Sing to deal
Exactly,
with
that's what
them,
I'm saying.
yeah.
It's kind of even personally because she has her healing factor is so strong, and she can inflict status with her normals or skill 2. So I think it's absolutely compatible, and she also ignores people and recharges gauge because why not?
Yeah, another thing
Yeah,
people
forgot about
always
that too.
another thing people always forget is that I'm not sure if the blue Uta does, but the red Uta does resist sleep. So that's
Yeah, of
another
course they
thing.
both do. They both
Yeah,
do.
they
Yeah,
both do.
they.
Okay,
Oh,
so
Usopp
that's
players were crying
also,
that day. Let
yeah,
me tell
yeah,
you.
they were. That is also a big thing. So
Yeah, that was a hard counter, and Usopp is still being played today. So yeah, he definitely was afraid of for a bit, but I think people are more afraid of other matches for Blue Uta. But I would definitely not mind seeing a Blue Uta. She's definitely top 5
yeah,
defenders in
I
AV
think
for
so
sure.
too. Let's continue with Frankie. Quite the old unit. I think the oldest unit on this list by
Woof.
far.
Yes,
But I think
sir.
he's still kind of got it. I mean, he's on the same level as Jimbe, if we are honest. He can't really
Yeah,
tank the
yeah.
attackers, but he does do a lot of damage for sure.
He
With
can
that
do. Yeah,
charged up beam, that's some big damage. And he's still, I mean, he is not as unmobile as the other defenders because his basic
no,
attacks make him fast,
yeah.
so that's kind of
I
the
mean,
good
this
thing.
is
And
this is a similar case here.
he's the
Yeah.
anti-runner defender. He's always been right.
Yep.
He's not a power user, so Rudy doesn't do too much to him. So against runners he can still cook, but he kind of very much suffers from the
Yeah.
strong attackers at the moment because he doesn't have much damage reduction against them. So he really can't hold the treasure for much time.
Yeah, it's the only thing he possesses, right? It's he only possesses what 60% when he's above 50, 30% in his treasure area, 30% when it's 50, as well as the additional 20 against runners. So he has 80% against runners when he's above 50 and 60% against everyone when above 50. But that's his only real defense here. Again, same thing, super regulated to a treasure area. He has his skill 1, which you want to use to heal at most times. It's a full heal, a lot of those cases, and can do a lot of damage. But you have to be attacked by an enemy. And in AVAs, what we've noticed is that when it comes to defenders, people love to avoid him unless they know they can win the challenge. So a lot of his kit is based off of people attacking him. And if he has that treasure area, people can just upright ignore him because he can't really move that much off the treasure area. And if he does, he's easy pickings because he would have only 30% damage reduction, which is truly unfortunate.
Mm.
Um, in this case here, skill 2 is decent. It does have knockback. It does have defense reduced, which I feel like in his case, not as useful here. Sure, you do have the kill potential with skill 1, but honestly, you want your defender to live most of the time, especially in his case. I would have very much appreciated if he would have had some form of attack reduction, but he does not. And then, of course, the gimmick of him is skill 1 only. So in terms of being an all-around good defender, he's all right. But he is very, very gimmicky off that skill 1. Super hard to move with, apply pressure, and defend flags as well. Just as soon as you're caught out there, he just dies, man. He
Mm.
does have the reduced 80% against status,
Yeah, that's
which
good.
is huge. Like, only 2 defenders have that, which is Benny and him, but both of them aren't really being played at all. So it's truly up in the air with this character. Very, very rare that you'll ever see him being played, even in overall the game. So I definitely put him in straight booty butt cheeks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, last but not least, we have, I think, the newest defender in the game, if I'm not
Ah,
mistaken.
yes, my
Yeah,
favorite.
Momonosuke, I think. Yeah. And I think he's on a similar level to Uta for different reasons, though.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I think the most interesting, or one of the most interesting parts of his kit is obvious that he is the only Bounty Fest character who can charge a treasure area past 100%,
Gets the
which
150.
is, yeah, which is a big deal in my opinion. Like, it takes so much more time to capture the treasure, and it makes the backcapping harder, and he has the capture block as well, which doesn't
Yep.
last that long, to be honest, but he is pretty good, I think, and he's tanky.
So for me, same case here. Want a green bull. They kept giving me Momo. I guess they just kind of knew that I was the defender main. And ever since I maxed him out after I pulled, I said, you know what? I'm gonna run double defenders. I'm gonna play Bello and Momo as like my meme team. And the next thing you know, it has gotten so much success. I thought it'd be a joke, but honestly, it's been a really good lineup. If you got Bello and Momo, try them on the same team. I implore you. It's interesting and can actually work. So what makes Momo so good, especially being a backup as a defender here, is of course his teleport. His teleport is extremely strong. Now, of course, he's one of those characters that it regulates to a treasure area, but because of mobility like standards here, he does have that skill 1, which allows him to transfer between treasure areas without being exposed, which is huge here. So I think he is one of those honorary mentions that is very, very mobile, right? Compared to Blue Utsa, Bello, and Trouble here, where they're able to fight off the flag and rotate effortlessly. He's the same case here. I love his kit to death. Now, there is good to note here that he's really, really good against Animal Kingdom Pirates here. He gets most of his kit from them, which of course are very dominant in AVAs, i.e. King, Albert, right? Those are like the 2 most prominent Animal Kingdom Pirates that you run into. You might run into a Queen, not as much though.
Yeah, not really.
However, he's really good because if you have attack on him, especially with that skill 2, he could potentially one-shot, which I think is really, really strong. Because of how much increased damage that he gets. Now, and here's my case for why I think he is top 3 defender in AVA.
Okay.
For me, yes, the capture block is short, but what we all know is that capture block is a game-ending status. It's
Yeah,
possibly the
it
best status in the
is.
game because it prevents you from doing the objective, which prevents you from winning essentially. Now he only has it on his normals, which is a 50% chance, and the skill 1 when he lands. But if you can get off those normals, which he's going to be fighting a lot with, it would be huge to get off at least 10 seconds of cap block because it could be game defining in those final seconds of the match. For him, he has the 30% in his treasure area as well as increased damage against Animal Kingdom Pirates, which makes skill 2 so strong. After receiving damage, he does recover HP by 3% if it's 10% or less. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, fixed damage characters. It's the reason why King Skill 1 is able to not really do much against him. And against Queen. Queen can't do anything against him. A lot of those cases, his damage reduction will just be so high that his healing factor would kick in because they're not doing enough damage here. I can't tell you how many times I've run my Rumble set here, my DR set, that I let that 20% damage reduction kick in on top of his 30 plus the 50 that he gets when he's above 70. So he's at 80% natural damage reduction. And if you're running a DR set, you can just get in that additional 20 and make characters do absolute peanuts. I've tanked Hakuma's skill 1. I've tanked Nami's Zeus skills, even her skill 2, because the damage reduction is just way too strong. He can walk out of Biscuit Warrior and actually get a full heal from Biscuit Warrior. Obviously, the skill 1 is the, problem there, but it allows him to move around freely. He has really good super armor, which he would get when he is, above 70% and knockback resist as well off the treasure area. So there's a lot of his kit that, isn't regulated to a treasure area, but it's nice that he has a teleport because it's safe to rotate. Yeah, I think it's really good. I think with that 150, it can prove, crucial, especially when you need a back cap or you need a clutch cap. And if it's at 150, that's super tough. And then he adds the cap block just to rub your face in the dirt some more. And he is, like I said, the tankiness is just so much because he has that 80% damage reduction on deck. And if you were to run that DR set, I used to think that maybe you should run like a skill 2 cooldown because he does get healing when he lands it, as well as him giving him back his skill 1 if you skill 2. But honestly, I think damage reduction has been the wave, and I've been loving a DR set on him ever since. It makes him just so unkillable at times, and it makes me feel invincible. But you definitely have to play super technical because you have to realize what your placement is on the map to be able to rotate between treasure areas with that TP, because that TP is so crucial as well, man. This character, when played right, can be an absolute, tank, an unkillable monster, if you will. So I think for me, because he has that 150, because of the damage reduction, and because of his cap block, I have to put him, for me, at least top 3 AVA. But either way, broken meta, fine placement for me, man. Definitely top 3 for me for sure.
I see. Yeah, the capture block is a really big thing, especially for me being a runner main. That pains me every time it is inflicted on me, especially for like runners like King, who basically the only thing a King can do is pretty much the only thing is getting flags. Like he's not much of a fighter, and if a unit like King is capture blocked, then the enemy team is fighting a 3v4.
Oh, big time.
That is a huge impact he can have with the capture block. I agree, yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it for this video. Thank you very much, GetLite, for giving us this in-depth analysis. Link to GetLite's Twitch is in the video description, as well as a Super Link Discord server. Peace out.